Hey everyone, this is Fred Craven, stage manager at Harmonic Software Production Studios. Coming up next is our July presentation of FileMaker Pro Users Group Dallas, which we host here the first Friday of every month. In today's presentation, Paul Mitchell is going to be talking about FileMaker Pro 26 and some of its new features. Everyone's excited to hear about them. And be sure to like and subscribe, and please make a comment if you want. Enjoy the presentation, and if you can, why don't you come out and join us? Links down below. We provide lunch. It's great. You'll love it.
Good morning, fellow FileMaker developers and users. Imagine giving your D-Day invasion plans to the enemy, located just across the English Channel from the cliffs of Dover. Last month, I was in Chicago for a Checkpoint conference. The conference was heavily focused on the risks to corporate proprietary data that might come from using outsourced AI frontier models like Anthropic's Claude and OpenAI's GPT. As Chamath Palihapitiya recently said about usage of frontier models, every time an employee runs a query through a frontier model API, the prompt goes through the external servers, workflows, customer data, pricing logic, internal processes, all of it transmitted through a third party. Companies are spending on tokens while handing over the exact proprietary advantages that make their businesses worth owning. Zerowait's customers understand that. Organizations that use these models and cloud providers' data are handing their valuable proprietary information to potential competitors. In today's AI-enabled world, organizations face similar threats to their data sovereignty. Sending your proprietary data, business strategy, and tactics to public frontier models risks leaks, compliance violations, and your competitive advantage. That's why Zerowait's secure on-site architecture is so valuable for the FileMaker community right now. Zerowait delivers turnkey, on-premises, simple store appliances. These systems give you 3 times faster FileMaker performance, full control with Proxmox virtualization, ZFS snapshots, replication, and immutable storage. The speed and capacity needed to run local AI models and FileMaker 2026 AI features without ever leaving your secure network. You keep your data where it belongs, on your premises, while still enjoying enterprise-grade reliability and the performance of modern AI workload demands. If you value your data and need a powerful, simple converged infrastructure for your FileMaker project, Zerowait can help. Thank you. And now I'm happy to introduce our featured speaker for today, Paul Mitchell, introducing the new features of Claris FileMaker Pro 2026.
So for the last few years, the last 2 or 3 versions, Claris has been laying the foundations of the future. A future in which our expertise is leveraged more effectively than ever to provide order and efficiency to our clients' business operations. With Claris FileMaker Pro 2026, we can see how Claris continues to build on these foundations. So let's take a quick look at what you guys thought in the pre-survey. So, for the question I'm most interested in hearing about, 8% of you said FileMaker server improvements, 33% said AI support, and 58% said productivity features. And for the excitement level, this is mostly about the productivity features, 42% are excited about the friendly field names, 42% about the persistent data store, and 17% said you're most looking forward to the scripting improvements. So, let's see who gets disappointed and who's going to be pleased.
Those are developer-heavy answers there.
They really are, but it's who we are. All right. All right, first up, we can now add comments to base tables. Right here in the Manage Database dialog on the Tables tab, this can be good for developers, but it's going to be invaluable for AI. We'll be able to tell the model explicitly what each table is for. Back when I was teaching beginning FileMaker to actual classrooms full of students, I told my students that if you know what a record represents, you know a lot. Is it a person, a product, an invoice line? Now, an AI model interacting with a FileMaker app will be able to know what a record represents. Also new in the schema, here on the Fields tab, we have a new button, Advanced. And behind this button, we have two new features. First, we have the ability to add annotation for the field. Previously, we could comment individual fields. In the age of AI, we could pass this comment to the LLM simply by adding an LLM tag to the front of the comment. But doing so meant that those comments were now no longer written for the developer. So now, whatever annotation you specify here is used by the natural language SQL query script step and can be passed to an AI model using the getTableDDL function. Now, if you don't use this box to annotate any fields, all the fields will be included in the DDL. But if you do annotate any field, only those fields you annotate will be included in the DDL. So for example, you wouldn't want to annotate summary or global fields because you wouldn't want to run a SQL query against those. We also have a new calculation function to return the DDL of a table in standard SQL notation. So here's what it looks like. It's just a text edit box. Here's some examples of how you'd want to use this field with thanks to Vincenzo Manano at Beeswax and his excellent blog post on the topic. So he's indicated some actual text that you would put in, for instance, for a number field that's being used for a tax rate, for a text field that's being used for a name, status fields, and so forth. You'd want to be sure to annotate all the fields on an API layout. You'd want to annotate foreign keys. You'd want to annotate calc fields displayed in the flag in the UI, or flag or status fields, and the units referred to in number fields. There's many examples, and I recommend his article at blog.beeswax.net if you're doing integration with your FileMaker app. If you're doing AI integration with your FileMaker app, you really shouldn't neglect this feature. There's also a checkbox in that dialog, and when you select it, you get the ability to add friendly names to your fields. Now, if you, like me, prefer a naming standard that isn't as intuitive to users, you're going to love this. So they've given us 4 default field display types. The first one, FM table view, will simply, whenever you put a value in for the FM table view, it will show that when you're in table view. The FM sort, it will show that in the sort dialog if you put a value for that. If you put a value in for FM export, it will show you that in the export dialog. And if you're exporting to a format that supports column headers, it will use those names in the column headers in the exported file. And finally, the FM common, if you put something there and leave any of the others blank, it will use that for those values as well. So if you just want to have one friendly name for each of those situations, just put it in FM common and it will show up in all those places. And we have a new calculation function, field display names, which will return as JSON, will return all the field display names that you've got, the type and the value that you've got there. Additionally, you can add your own types for your own purposes. Just don't use that FM underscore prefix because Claris intends to provide additional default types in the future. I'm crossing my fingers for FM import. So let's take a look at this. So here in the schema, here's where we got table commenting. Now this is very simple on an unchallenging example file. It has one table and 23 fields. So I just threw a test comment in here. It's just that simple. Over here in the fields, if you select the advanced button, here's that DDL annotation field. But if you check this, you see the default JSON it gives you with each of those 4 default types. And all you have to do is put a value here. And you've got it. And for an example where I used an additional one, I threw in a Russian version. You might use this if you wanted to do multiple different languages for your field name labels. Just one example of a way to use that. Let's see how that appears. So here in table view, you can see that I've got all my friendly names here. Like the real name for the first name field is simply name first. And the real name of the last name field is name last. If I turn those off in the schema, in the managed database, they'll just go back to the standard version. If I want to show it in sort, here's what I've got in sort. And if I do an export, they show up that way in the export dialog. Just like that. So I want to show you a trick I learned while I was researching this. I had a project a while back, maybe last year. I was asked by one of our clients to be able to produce an Excel report that had friendly field names across the top. And I ended up doing a couple hours worth of research to figure out how to do this using XSL, and I had to create a separate XSL formatting file and all that. And so obviously this friendly field names is going to give us that. But we've also, and I was only able to do it as a tab file, which could then be opened in Excel. But people have been asking for a long time, how can I do header lines on CSV, which FileMaker doesn't support header rows for CSV. What I learned was that a merge does. If you export it as a merge file and then rename it, you get a CSV file with a title row. And using this new feature, I can have a CSV file with a title row and friendly field names. So let me show you that real quick. Export CSV with title row, and it just runs that fast. And if I open it, it'll open up in numbers. And here it is, with all my friendly field names on a CSV file. That is a cool thing that I learned while researching this. And it's, you know, the rename function has been with us for 2 or 3 versions now, but now combining it with the friendly field names, it's even more useful. But the trick is export it as merge and rename it, because apparently that Microsoft Word merge file is a CSV file with a different name and a header row. If we want to display these names on a detail view, for example, we can do this. Here they are again. And I used a layout calculation for this. And I went ahead and did it a little bit sophisticated because I wanted to show something valid if it wasn't activated. If I didn't have it turned on, I didn't want to show that it was missing JSON rather than the other name. So here I'm pulling the field display name using that new field display names function, and I'm feeding it the file name and the field name. And then I'm telling it which type, right here, FM common. But then I'm testing to see, is that valid or is it returning a question mark? And if it is valid, then give me what I pulled, and otherwise, just use it. And then I figured out, just this morning, while I'm looking over this, getting ready just one last time, I thought, boy, that looks complicated to do over and over again. So I created a custom function this morning that does it just this easily. Just like that. And there it is. So I'll probably put that custom function up on Brian Dunning or someplace so people can see that. But I thought, wow, that looks complicated. I should use a custom function for that, and I just did that this morning. So that's the new display names function. Now, this next feature, for a lot of people, is going to change the way we build FileMaker databases. We can now store information about the file or for the file's use in the database schema. It's called the persistent data store. So you see the notes, it's schema level data source, it's file specific, It persists across all sessions until modified or deleted. So this is not a global field. This is, you put it in the schema and like a field definition, it stays there until you go in and change it again, delete it or edit it or whatever. And it's like field definitions, it's available to all the users. And if you change it in the middle of something, it becomes immediately available to all users. So we have a new script step, the configure persistent data, and it looks like this. And behind it, it looks like this. So we have the name box, and I want you to think of this as a folder name because you're going to put multiple things into it. The folder name is simply text. You can't use a calculated value, you can't use a variable value. Whatever you put into this box, including quotes or other punctuation, is your folder name. I tried putting it in quotes and discovered that I had to, when I wanted to return it, escape the quote because that was part of the folder name. So don't put it in quotes. Then we have the instance ID, and that can be a calculation value. These are your keys, and you can specify multiple instance IDs under the same folder name. And then finally, we have the value, which can also be calculated. And we have two new calculation functions. Get persistent data displays the value of a specified name and instance. And list persistent data IDs lists the instances assigned to a given folder name. So notice it uses your folder name to return the instance IDs. There is no function that returns the folder names in the persistent data store. So keep track of those. Let's see how this works. So on this splash screen, for instance, there is no record data here. And there's also no data that's hard-coded on the layout. These fields, I've got logo 1, 2, and 3. These are global calculation fields. They're just holding a calculation. So there's no data there either. So you see here, I'm using the get persistent data, splash and title, to return text values, where I've put text there. And then the global fields are also pointed at the persistent data store. Just like this. The script where I set these just looks like this. Splash, and then put a value here. And of course, if you want to change it or delete it, this is where you would go in and do that again, specify the same name, the same instance ID, and you can either edit the value or you can delete the whole entry from the persistent data store. So here's some use cases for the persistent data store. Version numbering, add-on configuration settings, JavaScript libraries or HTML files. Jeremy Brown is already putting all his JavaScript stuff into the persistent data store as clients will permit. He did an excellent video about this with the FM training guys. Who has any others that they're considering? I know one I'm thinking of is almost invariably I will put a client logo at the top of the layout. From now on, that's going in the persistent data store. Jeremy, did you have one?
We're thinking about using persistent data stores for plugin distribution.
Oh, very interesting. Store the plugin in the persistent data store. Oh, I like that. I hadn't heard anybody say that one.
Yeah, so I think anything you use a single record table for,
Right.
system level stuff.
Except that you wouldn't want to use it for anything like secure data. You wouldn't want to put sensitive data there. Because if this does come out, if you make a clone of the file, it includes the persistent data store. And when you save the file as XML, that whole persistent data store is part of that. So you want to be careful about putting sensitive information there. Maybe not API keys, but yeah, a lot of stuff. We may not.
Or encrypt it before you do it.
Yeah.
You have to have an encryption table that talks to that.
Maybe so. Some things to keep in mind here. It's not copied by the data migration tool because that deals with record data. The persistent data store is not record data. This is exciting, and I'm sure we will see a great deal of creativity involved in how people end up using this. We do have some changes to layout mode. We all know the inspector panel in layout mode. That's the panel on the right in layout mode that allows us to configure all the objects on the layout. Now it's only going to show us the things we can actually use based on what's selected on the layout. So when opening layout mode, instead of 4 tabs, We now have none. But select an object, and we now have 2 tabs instead of the 4 we used to have for appearance and data. Some of us are going to love this, and some of us are going to hate this. If you hate the new arrangement, you can just click View and Inspectors and create a new inspector, and that new inspector will have the familiar 4 tabs. Claris is promising that with the first VREV, we'll have a file option that allows us to choose which version we see by default.
And that would be a file level?
Yes. Now, I think a lot of us have been waiting for this next feature, which allows us to control field entry in a more granular fashion, including by calculation. Hashtag #WhyBAML. Where have you been all my life? In 2018, I did a session at DevCon on basic scripting, and I coined this hashtag to celebrate a number of new scripting features then. Where have you been all my life? Hashtag #WhyBAML. I'm bringing it back today because I'm excited about some of these features. So let's look at layout mode. Oh, come on, give me a break. Okay, over here in layout mode, we see I haven't selected anything, so we don't have the 4 tabs across the top, just theme and style. This addresses the entire layout. But if I click a field, then I've got appearance and data that I can work with. Now this field is just set to not allow entry. That means that nobody can read the entire value because it extends below the thing. In the old days, I would set it this way if I didn't want somebody to be able to edit it, but now they can't copy anything out of it, and they can't scroll the field because they can't click into it. So we can do that differently. So I can click on this field, and down here just below the hide conditions, under data, field behavior, is I've now got in browse mode and in find mode, I can do set by calculation, I can do select only, view only, or they can edit it, or I can set the calculation to be anything that I need it to be. It can be based on access privileges, it can be based on what day of the week is it, whatever you need to be able to set those entry privileges by. But if, for example, I just choose select only, if I go back to browse mode, I can now click into the field. I can select, I can copy from the field, but I cannot edit the field. And that's just a mouse click. That will make some of our clients' lives easier.
It'll make my life
Yeah, not to mention our lives, that's right.
No layered fields.
Yeah, I won't be layering as many fields as I've been layering.
No
Yeah,
script triggers required.
exactly. That's it, all right. We can now sort custom functions with folders. Hashtag #WhyBAML. I know around here we've got a lot of custom functions, and it's a question whether we want to name them in a way that they sort properly or alphabetize them or what. Now we can sort them into folders by function or whatever other criteria suits us as developers. Hashtag #WhyBAML. We can set the layout zoom by calculation. And we're no longer limited to this 25, 50, 75, to this list of options. We can set it to anything between 25 and 400%. We can set it to 37%. We can set it to 137%. Whatever suits us, we can set that to. Hashtag #WhyBAML. And another improvement, we can now configure the size and position of custom dialogues. They will pop up where you tell them to and be the size you want.
I have a question about that.
And we can now scroll the custom dialogue. Say it with me, hashtag #WhyBAML. What's your question?
My problem is, what monitor will it show on? Because it's never where I expect. I got the file open over here, and it puts the dialog box over here, and I'm going, where are you? And then I have, oh yeah, it's over here. And then if I work over here, it's there. It just doesn't, I can't control that.
Well, I think with the new settings, you will be able to. Because I think it's going to be the same window where it's popping up. It's not going to be trying to find where it was the last time it opened or when you first configured it. So now it's going to be wherever you want from the top and the left of the current window and of whatever size you need it to be. You'll just be able to set it right there in the dialog. Let's take a look at that. First, we can look at the zoom. I set this field to run a script on modify. So if I set this to, for instance, 58, it resets my zoom level. If I reset it to 158, it resets my zoom level. For my own convenience, if I clear it, it resets it back to full size. So let's look at that script. The set zoom level is just a very simple, the same things as before, but now we can set it to a calculated value. It can be to anything. I did test it. If you set it to lower than 25 or more than 400, it doesn't do anything at all. It doesn't make a change. But I thought that was kind of cool. And then the custom dialog is just this simple. Let me run this. So you have my custom dialog. It shows up where I tell it to, and I can scroll it.
Question.
Can you set the zoom based on the resolution of the screen that you're on?
I'm not aware of being able to detect the resolution of the screen I'm on.
Can't you get a giant monitor that's got...
Well, I hear what you're saying. I can see why you'd want to, but I'm not aware of a function that allows me to capture
But you
the...
can, I think there are some of your design details.
Yeah, there's the screen size. So you could make a custom function to calculate.
Just set the zoom based on, that way it gives you something relative to the size of the monitor or the resolution that you're on.
Screen width, there you go, get screen width, get screen height, get screen scale factor.
Oh, wow.
How about that?
That's more better.
Why now?
So sounds something worth experimenting with.
Oh my gosh, you just got an ironic, real wide angle from the audience.
There we go. All right.
That's a good idea, though. Write a custom function to, okay, I'm on a big, I got plenty of resolution,
Right.
do this, I got less, do that. Yeah.
Oh, so you could filter what's actually being displayed by what's on the resolution of the screen.
And so here's where in the custom dialog, you will set this, the location, the position, and the size of your dialog. So I'm sure that's going to make things a lot easier and hopefully fix that problem you were describing. Yes, Steve?
To Thomas's point, like, in general, when FileMaker is doing this, it is from the anchor monitor where FileMaker's running, or the topmost window. Do we know?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't experiment with that.
Yeah.
And finally, that custom functions thing, just put things in folders the way you want them
Does it have a
to.
where am I? Which screen am I on?
Yes, we're getting to that. That's actually coming up.
That's what I always need.
That's
am I?
that's coming up. Not for monitors, but for FileMaker windows. So let's move on in that direction. So we have two new AI-related script steps: insert image caption and insert image captions in found set. We have a new kind of captioning, a new kind of AI model called a captioning model, and it does just what it sounds like. You pass it an image, and it returns a caption for that image. And we'll touch on that again when we get back to server, but these are two script steps to be able to work with that. And the insert from URL script step is now automatically caching JSON results. In the past, it stored JSON as text, and it converted back and forth as it needed to. Now it simply stores JSON as JSON. So that should run faster. We also have 6 new script steps that allow us to do more precise work with PDFs. And we have still more quality of life improvements. We have get account password days remaining. So if you've got users who have deadlines on their passwords, you can start warning them. ODBC credentials by calc in the import and execute SQL. We now have support in the containers for WebP format files. The replace field contents, we can now skip the auto enter. So if you've ever needed to put a new field in an existing table and populate it, You
No
don't
more.
have to be the last person that edited everything in that table.
We no longer have to start with a script that says export all the mod fields.
Right.
And then re-import them after we make our.
That's correct. We don't have to do that anymore. It's just a checkbox for,
Never
perform
looking at
auto
the
enter,
file.
and I think the checkbox is not checked by default. So it's only going to do it when you say, oh yeah, we want to update all the auto enters. We've also got the ability to flush cookies in the web viewer, a file option to add or not the default fields when you create a new table. So those 5 fields that show up when you create a new table, you can turn that off and just not see them. We can now sort blank records last. It's a checkbox in the sort dialog. If you don't want to see all the blank values at the top of the list, you can move them to the bottom of the list.
Also great.
And get window UUID. Greg, this is what you were asking about. This returns a UUID for the current window. And so I've seen 2 examples of use cases for this so far. One was if you're doing a scripted navigation, you want to do sort of a web browser type of navigation with forward and back buttons, but your user is going to a different window, that would trip that up. Now you can capture which window they're navigating to and have that as part of your scripting.
I'm just thinking of a use case for that would be helpful. We often will we'll create a new window, a utility window to do stuff, but we put that window like -2000 from our current position, right? But depending on how the user has their monitor set up, if they're doing that on the right-hand window and it moves over, it might just show up over there. So that might be, in some cases, be a way for us to know that that is going to happen, or that has happened, and move it maybe yet again.
Maybe so. Maybe so. Another thing I've seen this demoed for was selecting multiple fields in a list to be able to show, to make a list maybe in a global field or a variable of which records have I selected. But if you go to a different instance of the same layout in a different window, that would trip that up. And so now you can capture which window you're capturing records on and be able to show that. So that's some of our new productivity improvements, our quality of life features. And I heard some good enthusiasm for those. So let's take a look at what else we were excited about coming forward. These are server features. Some of you were looking forward to auto restart after crash, or multiple concurrent PSOS sessions, or the export field contents on server. So those are things coming up. So first, we have remote backup. This is a new feature in FileMaker Server. Remote backup is a new service being offered by Claris to supplement our on-site backups. And again, there was a great video about this. The FileMaker Server standby server allows us to set up a second server, so if the first one crashes, we can quickly switch over to the standby and get users back to work without having to take the time to bring the primary server back online, potentially recover corrupted files, or whatever else we have to do to fix what went wrong. We don't have time to do a demo of these features, but Ryan Manook at Claris did a great job in their Community Live number 48 video, which is on the Claris channel on YouTube, and I highly recommend it. And also new in FileMaker, if your server box has the power and RAM to support it, you can now configure FileMaker Server to allow additional concurrent SASE processes to reduce queuing. And the web publishing engine, the OData engine, and the data API will now restart automatically when you bring the server back up after a crash. No more having to go back a second time after a restore because you forgot to restart web publishing. Anybody else done that, or am I the only one? I'm the only one admitting it. All right. Also, when working with server-side scripts, we can now use the export field contents step. Save files to a folder on the server and work with them there. I know that I had a client a while back, I wanted to be able to do that kind of work, and I just couldn't do it, and it was such a barrier. Those were our server. Now we've got the AI stuff. So the most important AI feature will be, half of you are most excited about saving to and creating from XML. And then a quarter each are excited about field and table annotation and the separate installation of the AI model server. So We have a lot of AI-related features, and I can only zip through most of them. So we have support for Google Gemini. So in that drop-down in the semantic search, you've got support for Google Gemini. The RAG now handles multilingual content and scanned PDFs. And AI services can be installed separately from database hosting, improving performance. That means that when you're improving server, you can put the AI server on one box and the database server on another, so the two of them aren't competing for resources. Much the same way we could previously do different web services on multiple helper boxes. Now we can put the AI services or the tools on each installed separately from FileMaker Server. We can now control dependencies in Python. We can now, the require API key for access is now enabled by default. And if you turn it off, you will see warnings everywhere telling you not to do that. We can now import RAG spaces. If you've built a RAG space that you're happy with and you want to use it on another server, you can just import it. I mentioned the new model type, image captioning. They're using a model called Blip from Salesforce. And we're going to have a chat interface in the admin console to be able to talk to a RAG right there. We have the field annotation that I talked about before. We can now comment base tables like I talked about. And also the DDL will create the FileMaker relationships directly. So we don't need a translation layer. It'll just be there in the DDL when you use the DDL. And finally, we have the new Save a Copy as XML. This is available under the Tools menu. And I think this is going to be big. And let me show you why. Here under the Tools menu, I got lost the first time I tried to look at it. I looked under File, and I'm looking for Save Send Records As or Save a Copy As. XML is not one of the choices. It's here under the Tools. Save a Copy as XML. If I save a copy of this database as XML, I get the option to include all these different catalogs. And I can turn off or turn on any of them. I can export for multiple files at the same time. I discovered that I like to check these boxes. This is not the same as the DDR that we were putting out before when we saved that as XML. This is somewhat different. If, for instance, you wanted to have an LLM look at a script, you could export just your scripts for that file, feed it to the LLM, and it could give you advice on what you need to do, what's wrong with this script, or how should you change it. So I'm going to go ahead and export this. I've also discovered that some things don't like these characters, spaces and dashes. So now I've got an XML file. And I can open this up in BBEdit, and you can see it's 7,700 lines long. Go back to the top. And right here at the top, you see I've got my persistent data store. We've got, here's my file access catalog, here's my base table catalog, and all the different parts of the file are here. Scripts and everything is right here in the XML. Now, it doesn't have the data, but it has everything about the file. Okay. Okay, great. So you may have noticed on my example file, I have, on this layout, I have a button. This button does nothing. It's just a button that does nothing, and it's named George. So I can go and find that button, and I can rename it to something else, completely at random. There it is. Now I can save that value, close the file, and here's a cool new thing I learned to do. Change to my desktop. FM upgrade tool, I believe it is. Yes, got it the first time. So this is the FM upgrade tool, installs from FileMaker Server. I can now take this new command, generate DB file. and grab the path. And put in my file name, yes, 500 converted.xml, and tell it to generate a new FileMaker database file from that XML file. Success is generated. So let's see what that looks like. File is right here. As I said, it has no data. But if I add a record, I can see my persistent data is all right here. And my button is now named Ringo. I just manually edited the XML to change a FileMaker file. If I can do that easily using BB Edit, what can an LLM do? What?
That sounds dangerous.
What can an LLM do?
That's what I'm thinking.
In a few.
Call this cloning, because that's what it looks like.
Oh no, it's not cloning. This is gene therapy. This is. Oh my God. A few months from now, when they come out with the next tools and we're all vibe coding in an LLM and it's editing our hosted FileMaker databases live on the fly the way Martha demonstrated, this is coming soon. This is what it's going to be based on. This is what that technology is going to be sitting on top of, and this is what's going to enable it to do
So
that.
if we decide that we're no longer pleased with our naming conventions, we can go in and find every _C_ID and change it to something else.
Absolutely.
4 underscores.
4 underscores. Yeah, because somebody created another field that had 4 underscores and it always screws me up.
Linett?
So, very cool, very powerful. Also gives you the opportunity to overwrite something maybe you didn't mean to. So, there been any conversation, tools, suggestions about version histories? That way you can do it and not wreck yourself.
Well, obviously it's a danger, but right now we're at the stage where we're creating a new file every time we do it, because we're editing the XML and then generating a new file. In the not distant future, we're going to be editing live files. And what you described is a danger anytime anybody opens up a file and edits either the data or the schema. So we still got to be careful, and we still want to keep backups.
So it's basically just individual self-practice. There isn't anything built into the system to help mitigate that risk.
Well, no, the whole point of FileMaker is to make it easy to edit stuff. So I said at the outset that Claris is laying the foundations for the future. This structure isn't complete, but we can already see it taking shape, and I'm excited about what's to come, and I bet you are too. And you can now go to the Claris website and go to this page and be able to click this button and get on their mailing list for, hey, we are going to update you with all the new cool AI stuff that's coming out. So this is their new webpage to collect those emails. So let's talk about it. Who has thoughts about this new version of FileMaker? And please do share your reaction to this presentation. We're collecting that and keeping it in mind. I see a lot of comments in the YouTube chat. All right.
So I think just version control, to Linett's point, to the point of where we're rapidly skating with LLM, we're finally at the point with the Save as XML that version control becomes possible. The question everybody's going to have to figure out is how do you divvy it up, right? With them letting us save all of the items as individual, all of the catalogs as individual items, that finally makes it possible, right? We spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to rip apart the XML DDRs manually, and it's now a feature. So I'm, as a business owner that tries to do this professionally and not lose my shirt on it, I am very excited about the Save as XML with all of the individual catalogs separate, because that's going to enable version control.
I see the persistent data store as another tool for for versioning, because while we release builds of a solution not every build includes every file. And
Quite right.
I've always wanted to be able to know, like, when was the last time this file was updated? Or we come across an issue, we have no idea how long it's been there, which change introduced this issue that's just now being reported. It would be nice to know not just when was the last time this file was released, or updated, but what's the history of the releases for this particular file. That will help us a great deal.
Although, given that migration doesn't transfer
It would
persistent
require
data,
some, it would,
that will need to become a part of anyone's
a part of the
build
build
process.
process, yes.
Yeah.
Some of you are probably familiar with FM perception, to look at the sort of the old school, if it's the right term or not, but what we used to do for DDRs. The same people that make FM perception make FM comparison, which reads the new save as XML format, because the XML structure is a little bit different. And you can do, it'll show you a diff. You can't do like patches and stuff like that, but it can show you what's been changed in the graph, what's been changed in a script, in a layout. And then it would be up to you at that point to get those things into agreement. But you can at least view those with that tool.
Very cool. Anybody else have questions, thoughts, comments, things they're excited about?
I'm excited by something I wasn't expecting, which was the image captioning. I think, like for Valtech.
Oh, very cool.
That would be awesome.
The friendly field names.
Friendly field names.
As a latecomer, learning to read the underscores has just annoyed me for life. So excited that's the thing now. Oh my gosh.
Does that mean we can sign you up to go and fix everything in all the legacy systems?
If you tell me how to get where, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that kind of work.
Well,
If you give me your naming schema, it's gonna happen.
That will allow us to do things like ignore field names that were misspelled, but that we cannot change ever because they're referenced maybe somewhere in data, in a data field that is evaluated. Now we can give it another friendly name, fix it without having to change it.
FM Fan Y3H says, do we really think FileMaker is going to keep up with the AI big dogs? Shout out if you disagree with me, but I hope not. I hope not. I hope they're going to stick to the stuff that's tried and we know works. I don't want them out on the bleeding edge.
Well, what I see coming is that they are enabling us to more and more easily interact with what is sensible with AI. And like what's coming later this summer is just adding our ability to work seamlessly with whatever IDE coding environment of your choice. That's where you're going to interact with AI on the design side. And then on the usage side, we can already interact with all of the AI providers. It's not really Claris's job to be AI provider. It's Claris's job to get the barriers out of the way to let us use it. So I think they're approaching being there. Yeah, they have been a little behind the curve.
But Matt and I demoed a year ago about how to connect. You could download almost any model you wanted to your local machine and set it up in LM Studio, and FileMaker could talk to it. I see FM Fan says he's in response to you. He says, "Fair enough. That's a fair point." Linett?
I know security is quite the hot topic with AI and data management and that stuff. And with FileMaker, it's one of those some points where if everything is local to your machine, it is in some ways a lot safer because there's literally no backdoor. So if Claris's job is to make sure they are getting any of the barriers out of the way for us to maximally use AI, how are we sure that there aren't barriers unintentionally being torn down that put FileMaker at risk?
You don't.
Exactly. So do you have any thoughts on where they might go with that? Have they said anything on that front? Claris themselves, I mean?
That's why we get paid the big bucks.
Oh,
that's my best answer. The burden's on you
It's our problem.
to decide what and how to implement.
We're the experts.
Yay.
I'm also very, very excited about the field level control on a layout.
Yes.
Because we've handled that over the years. We've used so many different methods to achieve that. And, you know, script triggers made a huge difference, but they really only controlled whether you could be in the field or not what you could do once you were there. Then you had to employ other things, and we have
But now we can allow
different
somebody to select and
layouts.
copy without letting them edit.
Yeah.
I think that's huge.
Everything from different layouts for editing to stacked layered fields to, you know, all of that, hide condition, you know, everything. That is the simplest ever. And that we can do it with a calculation is just,
That is a big feature.
it addresses so much.
That is an exciting one.
I like that the insert from URL is backward compatible, so you don't have to go find the 78 scripts that you have that use it and then go change something about it. You can just leave it as is, and when you update the software, start handling the JSON response.
And the field annotation is the same way. If you've got LLM tags at the beginning of field comments, it's still going to take those.
Yeah.
I want to call out, I know we kind of went through the server features pretty fast, but any FileMaker system of any scale is really heavily dependent on a good server infrastructure. And I think standby server is an exciting opportunity. We don't really have enough time with it yet to speak authoritatively on it works well, but the possibility of having a high availability scenario for a customer where, you know, we're already deployed on VMware, Proxmox, or whatever, right? So we got the kit for it. The possibility that I could have that in place and not have downtime with a negative event, that's a pretty big deal.
So that I understand what that feature actually is, Steve, is that similar to what we had when we set up the Citrix server in South Carolina for the kind of like the?
It is not load balancing.
Okay.
It is standby. So it's a traditional high availability model where incremental backups are being replicated in real time to a second server, and that server can take over. And then there's we haven't played with it enough for me to speak more authoritatively, but there's some way where users can switch over to that server.
Okay.
That's my question. Is the backup automatically backed up? I mean, I'm the only one that knows FileMaker, and I'm not there today.
Yeah.
Would the automatic backup kick over or say, Thomas, where are you?
So I can speak moderately authoritatively on the standbys. The standbys do require developer input because the big thing you need to do after you hit a very convenient button, which switches it over, is you have to change your DNS settings. So you have to point your DNS to the new server. And depending on how long it takes for DNS to repopulate, depends on how long it'll take before it gets there. You might have to adjust your SSL certs. You might have to. I've been experimenting with it. It is really cool though, because you only lose 5 minutes.
It's not hands-off completely.
But not inherently.
Yeah, they're calling it a warm standby, not standby.
Yeah.
So
So you still have to be there.
So sorry.
All right, we have another.
Configure RAG account, perform RAG access. Do we really think we'll be able to build a knowledge-based chatbot directly in FileMaker?
So, I mean, we have, even with the prior version. I think so.
Don't you know so in that case?
Yeah, we demoed one last year, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, FMPUG, go look at our YouTube channel for Harmonic and find the bug from I think last October. And Matt Monroe and I demoed something that does that.
I think it works quite well.
Now that's my lunch.
Oh, worth it. Worth it.